Hello, Internet, and welcome back to Perfect Fair Day. I'm your host, Jeremiah Evans, and here's George Merchant across from me. Well, you'll have to forgive us for, what was it, about a month pause. We're
2
putting
weeks.
out, was it 2 weeks?
Yes, 2 weeks. Just 2 weeks.
Seems like it was about three. I don't know.
Felt like a month.
We were putting out the metaphorical fires, and I think we had a holiday somewhere in there. So,
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
yeah.
Yeah, we've been real busy, so you have to excuse us. So for those of you that don't know what we do for a living, we deal with the automation and electrical side, electrical controls of industrial equipment. So manufacturing, things that manufacture food, the water, water plants, cleaning the water, pre and post handling of that water, everything that makes just about everything that people buy nowadays. It's really these things that we work on are connected to everything, and a lot of people, when they think of automation, they think of robots. A lot of what we do, there's robots in some of the stuff that we do, but a lot of what we do, actually, there's no robots involved. But we had some major downtime across many plants, and we've had to jump around, run out of town, get stuff up and running, and the lack of skills and the skilled trades. You guys can imagine when people talk about lack of electricians, you imagine something so more specialized like what we do. It's very difficult to find people that have the talent and the skills to be able to address these problems. So here we are. We've been very busy. Of course, we had the Thanksgiving holiday in there as well, but so please forgive us for missing out, but we're getting right back on the horse again, getting right back into it. And today we're going to kind of go over a subject that we touched before, but I want to delve into it a little bit more because of what we're seeing recently, what's been recently in the news. And it really has to do with the subversion of our rights and speech, the spirit and the spirit. I want to talk about the spirit of the law and the spirit of the First Amendment and what it's written in, and why these things exist, because I think the spirit is actually more important than the law itself, because if the people don't believe in it, then it doesn't matter. You can write it down every which way you want to in the law, but if people don't have an understanding of the spirit of it and don't believe that that's the way that they should live, or that their fellow man should live in the country, or they should live under different rules or whatever, then you lose social cohesion and everything begins to break apart and fall down. And I believe that's what we're seeing on a large scale today, and not just in the United States, but in other countries that you would have called liberal democracies prior to this and stuff. You see what's going on in Canada. Canada has violated its citizens in every which way possible. I look at the Canadian government now and nothing but disdain and disgust when I kind of looked at them as our little brother in the past. I mean, Canada, we've been allies for a very long time. We've done trade with Canada. We've had a very peaceful coexistence with Canada. We move across each other's borders fairly easily, or we had in the past, and things were really good. And I look at places like Australia. Veterans know this. Veterans are actually pretty well aware of this stuff like that. There's been a real brotherhood between Australia and the United States. And again, this is another country. It's like they're a few years ahead of us. They eliminated their rights and just have absolutely just stomped all over human rights. I look at these countries now, and I don't look at them any different than I would a Venezuela, a North Korea, under Mao, or anything like that, because they're ruling under the same spirit. They're ruling under the same dictates, if you will, or line of thinking that you can exert your power over your populace. That's their goal, is that what they say you have to do. Whereas in the United States, it's kind of becoming that way by de facto, but we do have our Constitution, and there's enough of us, I think, in the United States that still value the words that are written in that Constitution. Though I do believe at this point in time, we've reached a point in history where the Constitution has been ignored, it's been stomped on and trampled, and we do not have the same rights. We're living under the illusion that we have the same rights that were written. And history has taught us many things about these sort of things. And throughout the history of the United States, those rights have actually kind of risen and fallen depending on the government. And I think the people's pushback on it and what we do, we've actually, we've added things to the Constitution, we've made amendments, and we've removed some stuff. We actually went back and changed some amendments around prohibition, prior to prohibition, which brought about prohibition, and then after prohibition, because it was an utter and total failure. And yet we continue to do the same things. We don't learn from history. There's a nice saying that history repeats itself, and then somebody came along and said, well, not quite. History doesn't repeat itself; it rhymes. I've heard that more lately now too.
It echoes.
It echoes, yeah. It looks alike. It really does. It looks alike. And now we're at a point in history that we now know that the U.S. government, through the FBI, at a minimum through the FBI, has been used as a cudgel against the American people, and in particular anybody that expresses dissent against the dictates of the government. And it may not even necessarily be a ruling or a law or a dictate or something like that. It may just be an opinion or even scientific insight on something, and which I wouldn't call scientific by definition, because you must allow dissent, you must allow a dissenting opinion in science, you must allow the theory to be challenged. And you have a media blackout on the story on one side of the aisle, so you see political spectrum, if you will. And I don't even look at it that way anymore. I just kind of look at it as like it's not a left versus right thing anymore. I believe that there's just, because there's a lot of people that I would have formerly called left that are disgusted by this. They've been labeled recently as a right winger or whatever, but they're not. Glenn Greenwald is not a right winger. Come on, people. This is the guy that broke the weapons of mass destruction story about Iraq. Okay, Glenn Greenwald was instrumental to me in shedding my association with any political party years ago. I mean, he was speaking truth, and I didn't agree with the guy. He was as far as like social look on things and stuff, but he was honest, and I respect that above all else. So he did this thing under great fear and great threat, and he's done a lot of good things for our country in speaking the truth and getting the truth out there. And now he just gets maligned and attacked and everything. It's a Pulitzer-winning, journalist, one of the best out there in my opinion, and everybody's just want to, not everybody, excuse me, particular people just want to discredit and attack instead of say, okay, let's explore this and come up with a counter, like a logical counter or reasoning behind it. And now what we see is that if you were really speaking out, and it's not really, like I said, it's not a right-left thing. It's like if you spoke out against, you were basically pushed down, shadow banned. If you don't know what shadow banning is, it's basically where they reduce your coverage and visibility on a platform like Twitter or Facebook or YouTube or anything like that. And these are now the instruments that we use to get speech out. These are the modern tools. Prior we had, newspapers and letters. Well, I mean, you had the news as well, but you had clubs and you got together in discussion and stuff. And what the internet has done is it's just furthered our reach. It's not it's not changed the spirit and the importance of free speech. None of those fundamental facts have changed. None of those things, the importance of free speech. And people need to realize that it's important that they have free speech, and they need to push back, and they need to stand up for that. Does that mean you get to go to your employer and start cussing them out and stuff? No, that's not free speech. That's people get everything. Well, if I got free speech, I got the freedom to say whatever, whenever. No.
That's easy for the boss man to say. You know?
Yeah, that's easy for me to say, right?
That's not free speech. Listen to me.
Obviously, I don't fire anybody for anything you guys say. Now, if you said something to a customer, lost us money or whatever, yeah, absolutely, I'd have to let somebody go for that. But they could say anything they want to me, and I'm not because I got thick skin. I don't care. The problem lies in when you're expressing your it's expression. You're expressing your opinion publicly, and you're saying, "Hey, I believe it's this thing. I believe in Bigfoot." Somebody says, "I believe Bigfoot." I don't believe in Bigfoot, but somebody says, "Hey, look, I believe in Bigfoot because."
Well, my feet aren't small.
Yeah, well, that's true. No, we won't go into that. So they're expressing their opinion on something like that they think that he exists or he or she, exists. And the truth of the matter is that person might be completely crazy, but he has the freedom to express this crazy idea. Now, when challenged, now you have the right to challenge that, though. You also have the right to say, no, that's a crazy idea. Though I would approach it maybe a little bit more diplomatically and say, I don't believe that there is. I'll always leave the possibility of a 0.00001 chance or whatever it is that somehow there's this creature that knows how to evade all detection and everything like that. And I'll hold that open in my mind, right? I'll hold that possibility but it is so highly unlikely and improbable that it seems to be insane. It seems to be a crazy idea. Well, some ideas that were previously thought to be completely insane are now known as scientific fact. You think about, we use wireless communication to talk now. This would have been like dark magic, not that long ago in history. And we've reached a point where we're arguing.
Well, it's alien technology.
Yeah.
Aliens.
That's right.
Aliens.
That's right. That's right. And now when you try to make an argument with somebody, and I don't mean an argument like you're fighting. You're not trying to fight. You're wanting to engage in the debate. You're wanting to engage and let the best idea win. Now, you may have the best idea, but I would tell people in the spirit of this, you keep your mind open and you say, "Oh, wait a minute. Oh, Bob over here, he's actually got a good idea. He's got a good plan. Maybe we should think about doing things this way." And then somebody else weighs the pros and cons and say, "Oh, no, but it's going to really negatively affect these people over here." And people go, "Oh, okay. So maybe we don't do that part. Maybe we take this part of what Bob said and this part of what, Sheila said and this part of what Tim said or whatever." And we take that and we jumble those around and we talk about it again. And we come up with better forms of governing. And we come up with better laws and we come up with things that benefit society in a greater way and help lift people out of poverty, et cetera, et cetera. And those sorts of ideas are only bore out through challenge. You can't, I think it is so incredibly narcissistic to think that you have the best idea. I think that's terribly narcissistic to say out of billions of people on this planet, you have the best ideas. Your ideas are the best. They're the best. I'm like, I don't think that's a good way of approaching life. Well, in your case. But we need this discussion. But there's another side of it too. And that's the freedom. That's the freedom to express oneself. The freedom to be an idiot. the freedom to be crazy, the freedom to be funny, the freedom to be provocative, the freedom to be compassionate, and the freedom to do all of these things, knowing that you may be judged, that people may look at you funny and not like you because of what you said. But there's a spirit there that when you are free like that, when you are free to express yourself like that, you don't feel confined and stifled. You feel that you at least have the right to be heard. I can't imagine living in a society, and it's not felt like we've had the right to be heard for a while. I got on Facebook for over a year, and I was only on Facebook really to just keep contact with friends and family, old friends and family and stuff. Share pictures, look at pictures, stuff like that of friends and family and see how they're doing, and it makes me smile. I always like even old friends from high school to see their kids growing up and everything like that and everything. It just makes me smile. I'm happy for them. I know I'm not seeing all the hard times and the sad times and stuff like that, but some of that I do see too, and my heart goes out for them, and I might pray for them, and I generally have a compassion for other people, so it's nice to see those things happening through their life where they're growing and they're overcoming challenges, and it makes me smile. I like that. I like that aspect of social media, and I pretty much don't like much beyond that part. Because of the way it's been manipulated. Because I see that there's some good that can come out of it, but the way things have gone, it became very suppressive. And Facebook, what happened was I wanted to engage in scientific debate over the COVID-19. Hopefully this video doesn't get suppressed just for mentioning that, but in COVID-19, what I wanted to do was I wanted to tease out more deeper understanding and answers. I wanted people to challenge me and tell me, no, you're wrong about this because these good studies right here show this. Like I wanted all these other people, friends and family and old coworkers and everything like that to say, hey man, I think you might be wrong about this. Like I don't mind being wrong. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with saying, okay, I got that wrong. And I have no problem with admitting that. It's like, hey, I got that wrong because this was such a developing thing and it was happening so rapidly. It's not like learning about, how, oxygen works in the lungs back in third grade or whatever. It's not about something that's well established, well known, well documented, well studied, proven out over a scientific experiment time and time again. This is a novel virus. And they were prescribing novel treatments, right, for the treatment of this. So I was like, okay, let's have a discussion about this, because I wasn't against getting vaccinated. I wasn't for getting vaccinated. I was like, people need to make their choices. They need to talk to their doctors. They need to make their own decisions. And there's a thing called informed consent. This is very, very critical to this conversation. Informed consent is very important to me. I experienced something in the military. Other people did. People in my generation in the military might remember the anthrax shots. They dropped the anthrax shots from the military. I think this is actually a very important story. Okay, so me and my wife both served in the Navy. Okay, she was air traffic controller. I was a nuclear machinist mate. Both served on the USS Enterprise, CVN 65. Yeah, the one from Top Gun and everything like that. Not the Starship. So while we were on the ship, they required anthrax vaccinations. But the problem was that the information on that we kept getting from everybody was that this doesn't vaccinate you against weapons-grade anthrax. So it was like, what's the point? What was the point? It was a vaccination for just the chicken-borne anthrax that a lot of people get exposed to if you've ever had chickens, been around chickens, or maybe even eaten an egg or whatever. To some degree, that anthrax is there in kind of natural amounts and stuff like that. And what they do is they weaponize that. They do beef it up quite a bit, concentrate it, and that this anthrax was this great fear. That this would be a biological weapon that could be used against us. Well, I don't know if it was so much of a great fear so much as these were a series of shots. They were like 6 to 8 shots. I can't remember the exact number. And almost nobody made it past the third shot because it was taking people to the ground. I mean, it was so painful. The first shot hurt. It hurt. The second shot was brutally painful.
Was it all at once or?
No, you had to, you paced it out over time. So you'd go in and then it was like so many weeks later, you had to come back. Keeping that schedule was also difficult too because we were all busy. We had to do things and stuff like that and say, okay, it's time to go get my next anthrax shot. And it was funny because basically people just stopped making their appointments. They're like, I'm not going to get another one of those shots. Nobody was going back to get the shots after a certain point. And what do? Do you kick your entire military out? No. What did they do? They dropped the requirement. While I was in. While I was in, it became a requirement, and they dropped the requirement, and it didn't last that long. And I would challenge people to kind of look up more on that story because it was extremely interesting how that is. And see, I know American history. I know the Tuskegee experiments. I understand some of the vile things that have been done to our military service members, the poisons they've been exposed to. I'm well aware of that. My entire family has served. We served despite knowing that our government is dirty and crooked. That's the nature of government. Power corrupts. Power corrupts. It always corrupts. It corrupts people. And people in certain positions decide, okay, I'm going to go ahead and carry out this thing, or by dictate, we'll just go ahead and use this experimental vaccine on the military or whatever and get them to take all this stuff, right? And they ended up having to cut it off because nobody would make it through the round of shots. Nobody would make it through the round of shots. Most people by the third shot would hit the floor. So after that, it was just like they just gave up on it. And the problem with that is that we were not able to give informed consent. When you're in the military, you suspend your rights. Your rights are suspended. Your constitutional rights are garbage in the military. They're nothing. You don't have a freedom to anything. Okay? You are signing away that in service to your country in protection of those rights for everybody else. But you don't have those rights when you're in. But informed consent, I don't care if I'm in the military or not or whatever. I mean, if you're going to put a shot in my arm, I'm going to know what it is. Or I'm not going to put the shot in my arm. You can kick me out, whatever. I understand a lot of people recently went through all this mess in the military. They kicked people out. They continue to kick people out for that. And I think that's terrible because informed consent is important. So how do you come to informed consent? Well, let a conversation happen. Let it get out there. Let people talk about it. Let people discuss it. Let people talk about the pros and cons. Let them say about the risks and the benefits and everything that has to do with it. Because what happens when all of a sudden you clamp down, and I saw it happening on Facebook, and I said, "Whoa!" It was a big red flag for me. I was agnostic on the shot. We were agnostic on the shot.
Yeah.
Me and you were talking about it at the beginning of all this. We were agnostic on the shot. It wasn't like we were like, oh, I'm not going to get it or I'm good. We didn't politicize it at all. Yeah. I was like, okay, I'd like to know. I didn't rush out immediately because I was like, I didn't want it to be I thought it could, like the local area could run out really fast if everybody ran out. I'm in my 40s. I'm like relatively healthy. I was like, I'll be okay. And from the information I'd seen so far, I was like, okay, I think I'm going to be fine. And, I'd rather the people that are really at risk get it first. And the more information we gathered, I started kind of turning against it. And what made me really, really, wary and like kind of really want to push against it is when they started silencing people. Because that's when you know that they're not allowing for informed consent. And that's very, very critical in medical care and informed consent on stuff is because if I have all these questions and I want them answered and I reach out and and there's all these discussions, and there's these good trusted sources, and I go through it all, and I say, okay, and I look at these different studies and stuff like that, and I say, okay, there's some risk or whatever, but they're really small. 1 in a million people might have some sort of reaction or something like that. All vaccinations have some reaction rate, so I might look at that and go, okay, well, it's relatively benign or whatever. I might get the sniffles for a day or something like that, and I'll be fine or whatever. I mean, and that's literally what I had in my head for the longest time was I'll get the shot and it's going to be like kind of getting the flu shot or something, right? And I didn't think so negatively towards the vaccine makers or the shot or anything like that. I didn't think anything bad about that until they shut down speech around it. Okay? Then you fast forward history to where we are today, and you find out really that our own government has been doing this to us. Okay? I don't want to be the only one talking here, man. You can jump in anytime you want to, okay?
Well, I mean, the thought I had really doesn't play into what you're talking about right now, so I'll let you finish.
So
it's more of a solutions idea. But.
So the First Amendment is extremely important to a free society, and an unmanipulated First Amendment is critical to the survival of a free society. So is morals, though. And when we look at the First Amendment, I'm going to read the First Amendment. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. And what I see right now is I see a political establishment, and I don't think it knows a particular party. I just think it's just showing up more loudly in one particular party than another right now. But I think both sides of the aisle have this establishment sort of wanting to keep control of that power. The FBI directly influenced what people could and could not say and see and hear through media, social media, media in general. And we've all really kind of known this, I think, for a while. It's the elephant in the room. Nobody wants to talk about it. And now we're at a point where we have the receipts. And more's going to come out. I understand, because truth has this thing, man. Truth has a way. Truth cannot be kept down. It's like a force of nature. People try and try. People get really disheartened because they think, oh, they'll not know the truth. I'm like, no. The truth has a way of coming out. It just does. And all these things that the Bible says, these things that done in darkness will be brought into the light. Well, yes, exactly. And it always happens. And people do these disgusting things, and it always ends up coming out. And to hear part of my people I would have considered my fellow countrymen, and I don't consider them my fellow countrymen anymore because they do not respect the Constitution at all. Therefore, in my mind, they are not Americans. But these people that formerly thought themselves as Americans, coming out and making excuses, downplaying, and deriding people that have brought up major concerns over the abuses of the government, and honestly a side of the political spectrum by and large that normally supports law enforcement in a major way, normally supports these institutions, have had that faith in those institutions and law enforcement completely eroded. I think the FBI is trash. I think it's garbage. I think the FBI should be abolished. It has abused its power to no end, and I see no good coming from it. They don't seem to stop anything. For a while there in the news, I did hear about them stopping some child trafficking and stuff like that. That was in the last administration. There was all these stories kept popping up about them busting this and that. And I thought, oh man, There's some good stuff going on. And I mean, that's good PR for law enforcement for sure. That's great PR for law enforcement. And it helps to, have people have faith in it. But what I see now is like, I'd rather just have state and local. I would rather just have state and local officers that that are invested in your communities and stuff, that their kids are growing up there and they grew up there and them, you went to school with them, that kind of thing. I'd much rather have those people doing law enforcement and enforcing the law than any federal bureaucracy that can be manipulated in such a way. I really don't think the FBI should exist anymore. They've, going back before we were ever born, they have brought nothing but pain and abuse to our country. I don't think that the Department of Homeland Security should exist anymore. I don't believe that the TSA should exist anymore. I don't think that the FBI should exist anymore. And I'm not saying that there shouldn't be law enforcement. I'm not saying ban all cops or anything like that. No. I want local and state law enforcement. I do not want federal law enforcement. I do not want an apparatus so large and powerful that they are putting their thumb on the scale when it comes to elections. I do not want something that's so large and powerful that they can throw you in jail without charge or trial for so long, like they've done with some of the J6 defendants. And I don't care whether you like them or not. I believe in the Constitution. I believe in people's rights. I believe that everybody has a right to a fair and speedy trial. This junk that's been going on with this stuff is third world country bullcrap. Okay? This is the kind of stuff that guys like me and my family served to fight it, went over into other countries so we could fight that war there instead of here that we fought against. And instead, we're over here and half of our country seemingly is beating the drum. Yeah, get them, yeah, they're terrible, get them. Who cares about their rights? Who cares about their rights? Because I don't believe it. They're a bunch of Nazis anyway. And we're now at this point in history where I'm watching it and I'm like, well, the country I love is dead. The country I love is dead. It's a shell. It's this thing that falters on, stumbling and everything like that. And it's sad to me. The things that it represented to me, the things that I loved about it, and I love this country. I love this country. But we're not a United States anymore. We're a divided states. That's all there is to it. We've got places that, they'll spit on you and they'll call you a fascist and a Nazi if you share your compassionate Christian beliefs. But when somebody goes and gets naked in front of little kids and you call them out for it, you're the enemy. You're the hateful one. I'm sorry, but no. This is no longer a fight to me. It's no longer a fight against, political parties or factions or anything. And I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. It's not that anymore at all. It's literally it's starting to just divide and push into this good versus evil fight. When you literally have people suppressing people's speech and cheering it on, they're the frickin' Stasi, man. They're ridiculous. This is ridiculous. This shouldn't be going on in America. I mean, the things that we always said that we were trying to spread around the world was those beliefs, those constitutional, fundamental, inherently born in people beliefs that you have that right, not given to you by man, but given to you by God. And if you don't believe in God, say it's the universe. I don't care. Whatever it is, the reason we say God is that we say that because we say no man can take it from you. That's the point of it. Whether you believe in God or not, I don't care. The semantic arguments with the left, I'm done with them. Okay? Because they act smart and they're stupid. They're idiots. They go on and on and on, and they go into these semantic, oh, well, you say God, but I don't believe in God. That's not the point, moron. The point is it can't be taken away from you because it's given to you by a higher power. Call it nature. I don't care. call it Gaia, call it Mother Earth, call it Scientology. I don't care. Call it little green men from another planet. I don't care. It's higher than man, period. It's bigger than mankind, period. Nobody can take it away from you. And instead of having that spirit, like, let's treat our fellow man with respect. Let's respect his rights. He has these rights. No matter how terrible the person, he has these rights. He has these fundamental rights. No matter how terrible the person, we still will treat him with these rights. Foreigners coming to our country have those rights. They're under the umbrella of the rights that we have in our Constitution. And yet we're not doing this for our own countrymen. I don't get it. I don't get it. Why have we come to this place? Why have we come to this place where suppressing people's speech is okay? Why are people making excuses for this? Why is there a media blackout on this right here? Nobody reads history? Nobody understands where this goes? I mean, we've seen it time and time again. Time and time again. We've seen this in country after country after country. I mean, people can make arguments where they stand on the nuances of some of these things, but some of these things are just inherently true. And if we want to continue to have any sort of semblance of a country and we want to thrive as a species, we got to pull our collective heads out of our ass and do something. We got to fix this problem. We can't let this happen again. We can't continue to let this go on. Maybe it's too late, maybe it's not. I don't know. I don't want to seem like I'm completely negative about it, because I do have some hope about things, because a lot of these things are coming to light. But I think it's important and proper to respond with indignance when it comes to these sorts of things, because I'm not speaking for George. I'm speaking for the voiceless. I'm speaking for all the people out there that can't. I'm speaking for the people that are afraid to. I'm speaking for my fellow Americans that I know I will fight tooth and nail for them to have those rights, because those rights are that important. I sacrificed my rights for a time. I gave of myself. I sacrificed. My entire family has. My entire family has. And this is the thanks, it feels like, is that part of our society has no touch in objective reality, doesn't respect their fellow man, they're nihilistic and narcissistic. Those are a deadly combination.
Yeah.
And now we're at the receiving end of government abuse. And that's exactly what it is. It's government abuse. And where's CNN on this?
Yeah.
Where's CBS? Where's NBC? Why aren't people screaming about this crap? Oh, I mean, sure, there's some right-wing voices that are. I don't know if I've even heard very much from right-wing politicians. Yeah. They don't even seem to be very loud about it or anything like that. And I've tried to tell people that a lot. It's like, dude, you can't trust politicians. I don't care what they call themselves. And because if they were real Americans, if they were really serving there with the spirit in mind of what our founders started for us, moving us forward through history, and in a manner that gave us the maximum amount of freedom to achieve our goals in life and share our lives with our families and thrive, I don't think they would act the way that they do. They're kind of, I know everybody likes to pick on politicians, but I mean they really are garbage.
So I tend to like to think of analogous and analogs of stuff,
Yeah.
Just stuff to like get people thinking, like you get a separate system or whatever, and they can maybe. So, and listening to you talk about that, I was, like building it in my mind, and it's probably gonna be hippy dippy, but follow me out and listen to me.
You have the freedom to speak, sir.
Yeah. So if you go to the top of the mountain and you shout, what are you gonna hear back? Like your voice, your echo, right? Well, that's great and all. Like everybody wants to be heard, right? But one of the most annoying things, I don't know, you ever got on a cell phone and
Oh, your own voice where it's like
it comes back to you, right?
like half a second behind or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I hate that. Yeah.
I think we build too many echo chambers, like we want to hear our voice back, but maybe a better way to look at things and that, like we don't really want to hear. We want to, speak more than we listen or whatever.
Yep.
Right. What does a tuning fork do? You hit it, right? And then you bring it close to another one. Maybe, if it's the same key or whatever, right? It resonates with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It listens, it responds back. There's like a little bit of harmony. Probably getting a little bit, too hippy dippy with it, but I guess, I just challenge people to think of stuff like that. Like be more, like resonate more than, looking for an echo chamber, because that's probably how we are where we're at. And I'm not going to say one side or the other because I know like that can set it off. But, like I feel like definitely more recently than not, it's just a bunch of people shouting, wanting to hear their own voice back rather than resonating.
Yep.
And like coming to a more harmonious, like,
Yep.
Sound or whatever. I know that just sounds hippy dippy, but
It's not. It's a natural law.
yeah.
I don't think it's hippy dippy at all. I mean, not in my opinion, but I there's two of us here, right?
Yeah.
At a minimum. What would be this talk show, even though I did go on a tirade, a pretty long tirade, because I feel very strongly about this. We have two people here, and we resonate. There's ideas that resonate, and then sometimes you add a little bit more to that tone, and then I might add a little bit more, and before we know, we have a symphony of an idea.
Yeah.
That's hippy dippy. Call it what you want.
That sounds way more beautiful than hello.
Exactly. I want the violin. I might even want the triangle because my idea is not the greatest, but it helps a little bit,
Resonance is
cowbell.
Resonance is more, indicative of keeping a system together than dissonance.
Yeah.
You get catastrophic failure.
Yeah.
In systems when you have.
Dissonance.
Like,
have you ever messed with the piano and you hit the wrong note?
Yeah. It's just like.
It's jarring.
Right? Yeah.
It's jarring, and I think that's a lot of what we're experiencing now too, because if you're speaking in truth, you resonate. Truth resonates with people. They may not even like it. You might call it a sad song or a dark song.
Yeah.
But there's a beauty to it anyway.
Yeah. Well, and it can become happier. Like.
And it might build you out of it.
Like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Because you're starting down here, and I actually approach people, and a lot of people in the conversation when I figure out where they're at, right?
Yeah.
I figure out what their mood is, and I figure out where they are they nihilistic and stuff. And I might approach them from that angle, okay? And then I try to build hope out of that, right? I try to bring people out of that funk, out of that mindset. And I love doing that. I'm not always successful, but when I am, it feels really good because making somebody laugh or smile that's kind of down and everything, encouraging them, that does so much. And that does so much for the conversation. And it also lets people know that have, different ideas about stuff, things that may not agree with you on, that you don't hate them. And you don't hate anybody. You're part of their song too. You are a part of that journey that we all are. We're all connected. And I can help this other person that's down. I can help this other person going through a hard time. Or I can choose to be nihilistic and narcissistic and say, let the whole system burn. What's it done for me?
Yeah.
And though I will say that if a lot of these people were born in many different countries, they may not have this view,
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's something indicative of when you get to a point where things are really good, you don't appreciate what you have. I mean, that's not a maybe. That's a definite. You know.
Well, that's
And then like
natural law too.
any little thing you perceive as a threat, you know.
Yeah.
Just like,
Well, I mean, that goes. It's like natural law. It's not 100%. You have exceptions to it or whatever. But by third generation, usually the people with wealth aren't worth a damn. Second generation is not as good as the first. First generation people that make it big or just make it decently or whatever. Those are the people that worked for it. Those are the people that worked hard. They be creative. That had sleepless nights. That trust me, as a small business owner, I know the feeling. And went through all the stress and the hard times of being what we'd call financially successful or just successful in different terms. And we respect those people, right? We look up to them and stuff like that. But recently, more in history, it's more like we just respect people that have wealth, right? And to me, that's never sat right with me. Like, I don't respect people just because they have money. That's meaningless to me. I'm like, no, now, I respect what you do. I respect what you do. Like, if you make a big impact on the world, you create all these jobs, you create a good product, you do something that makes life better for people, you help raise people out of poverty, you help put food on the table for all these families and everything like that, you build a business, or you improve a business greatly, or however, you know, whatever that journey is, then I respect that. I have a lot of respect for that. I'm like, yes, that's very, very respectful. But if you're third generation, you know, you're the grandson of, you know, a robber baron or whatever and stuff, and you've got all this wealth and everything like that because basically you inherited it. You didn't have to do anything for it. Then I'm not going to disrespect you. I'm just going to, because you may or may not be a good person or not, but I don't respect your work. I'm not like, oh wow, you worked so hard for that money. There's no respect to it. There really isn't. There's nothing to respect. It's like, okay, yeah, you got the money. I'm not envious. You know, I'm not angry. I don't want to take their money from them or anything like that. I'm not envious of their wealth. And I don't think them automatically as a bad person. Though, I would say from my experience in life, you know, statistically speaking, and just in general, everybody I've ever talked to pretty much agrees with it, that usually is a ruined person. That's usually their most of the time. Not always, but they usually don't turn out to be very good people. And I think that's because, to your point, they grow up and things are so good, right? They have it so good. But society now has it better, or at least over the last maybe, you know, decade or so, right? Society has had it so good now for a while, financially speaking, in the Western countries. And even in some of the developing world has gotten a whole lot better over the last 20, 30 years. Oh my gosh, it's amazing how some of these places have transformed and feeding their people. And you know, I mean, they've come a long way. And there is good news out there, people, by the way. Just, you know, people always focus on the negative. Now, yeah, COVID threw a wrench in a lot of that progress, but a lot of people are being lifted out of poverty around the world. Good things were happening. You don't hear about that, though, because that doesn't make the news. But we have gotten so used to things being so good that we think that it's not good, right? We have to have it better, and it doesn't harden people, and people don't have senses of accomplishment from overcoming hardships, and they don't. You know, I'm really grateful for not having money growing up. I'm really grateful for my upbringing. Like, because I look around now and I'm like, man, I would have been that guy. Because I'm not the kind of person that's like, I wouldn't have done that. I would have been this, or I would have done that, or whatever. And I'm like, no, in the given circumstances, I don't know. You know, yeah, I look at myself now and I lean in on my morals and what I believe in, but these people, when they're raised around other stuff and they've never really wanted for anything and they've never had any challenge in their life or anything like that, how can I say that I wouldn't end up just as bad or worse? I might end up worse given my personality, you know? I mean, I might end up like a terrible SOB that nobody could stand to be around. And
so, do you think it's even possible to have a perfect system where, if everybody was provided for, there would be like more of a harmony? I just don't even. I can't, in my mind's eye, like imagine that, because like you'd have to remove greed or that, because somebody's still like, say everybody in a particular society, especially as it gets bigger. I think smaller societies like the Native Americans, you had your little tribes that were more, in harmony with the earth or whatever. But then you go down to like Southern America, and you had the Aztecs and stuff that just slaughtered people and took whole tribes or whatever. Like, do you think it's just the nature of systems to like collapse over time because like there's just not enough like resonance, versus like just things that throw the system off or whatever, and they just compound and
I think that's a good theory, and I'm going to back you up with what you're saying there. I think you're rolling 20s, rolling sixes, rolling 20s. That's a Timcast reference. I do believe that I believe that you're really kind of hitting on something there that's actually very important. If you observe throughout history a phenomenon, what happens is when things congeal, it's like they're unsustainable. When things concentrate too much, whether you're talking about big cities or you're talking about power structures or you're talking about
the laws of thermodynamics, when stuff gets to perfect equilibrium, nothing happens.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there needs to be a flux, right?
Yeah,
there needs to be some change going on and stuff. But when all of these things congeal, whether you're talking about a city, it produces way too much pollution, faster than the locality can handle it, that nature can actually filter it out and handle it.
Yeah,
and then
saps up the resources.
Saps up the resources of other areas too. They get drawn in there. And then there's additional resources that have to be used just to get it there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's funny. I don't want to derail you too much, but I was talking to somebody the other night, and they were like, "Oh, you haven't been to Disney?" And I'm not going to get into the politics of that. I've just never been a big fan of Disney, but I lived in Orlando for 4 years when I was younger, and my biggest resentment was, I lived near Disney. People thought it was like the greatest place to go on earth, except for, I don't know if you live there. It's not so great because like around these big tourist traps, like Vegas, Atlantic City, Reno, places just where a bunch of people go, for whatever reason. You just go a little bit out, and it's never nice. They sap up all the resources of that area.
Yep.
It's just, it's terrible, the living conditions of people around it.
Yeah, you start to get towards the outskirts of things.
And that's why that was part of my, like, as a kid, I was like, I have no desire. Like, Disney, like, just takes and doesn't really give it back, a whole lot, But yeah, without getting too political, we could make a whole nother episode about the ills of Disney, that started many years ago, not, the more recent stuff,
But I mean, that's kind of like maybe a good example as well, though, is that you've got, when you have something that takes up so much of the resource and everything, and it concentrates it like that, then it becomes a destructive force, right?
Yeah.
And I think decentralizing, our founding fathers actually knew the importance of this very, very well, was decentralizing. They were anti-monopoly because they would roll in their graves over what we allow to happen now in big tech and some of the big businesses and stuff. They'd be like, no. Because what happens is as corporate power becomes as powerful or more than a government, right? And then they can bend the will of the government, and the government bends, the government has the guns, they have the right to force, right?
Yeah.
Force you to do. And they can force their people to take a product that they don't want to take, that they are having a difficult time giving their informed consent, for example, right? And they bend the will, they break the will of the people for the corporation, keeping their hands kind of clean from it all, right? And you've got this revolving door in Washington now, and that's exactly what goes on, is that they buy whoever off and stuff. They go into a high bureaucratic position in the government, they leave the government, they go back and work for Monsanto or one of the big media organizations, or in the example of Twitter recently, Jim Baker, the disgraced FBI agent that leaked fabricated evidence, at the very least. I don't know if he fabricated it himself, but leaked fabricated evidence that was trying to tie the previous president to Russia through a server and the Steele dossier and all that mess. And so he gets, he leaves the FBI in disgrace, and lo and behold, where does he go? He's head of legal counsel at Twitter.
Yeah.
So, we've got this nasty, ugly beast that's going on, and it's continuing to go on, and I don't know if it can be fixed at this place, or if it just rots and falls apart, right? It just kind of collapses, because I think that social cohesion is starting to kind of break down. I don't think family and community is, because I don't think you really. I mean, that's going to be a lot tougher, man. Because I mean, there's some really true freedom-loving people in the United States. There's a lot of them, and they believe in the right to defend themselves. And I do believe that that would take a lot of generations to breed out of America, and I don't know if that could be done. So here we are in a struggle, a tension with the powers that be, and getting back to what I was saying, our founding fathers would roll in their graves if they saw what we allowed to happen now, because of that congealing of power, right?
Yeah.
Just continuously, whether we're talking about corporate power or government power, which honestly at this point, I don't see much difference in, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I don't see a whole lot of difference in it, because when the government does the will of the corporation, right, and you're just working, hand in glove together on everything, and they get what they want. I mean, where are we at? I kind of feel like it's like they're just sort of the same nasty, Hydra type multi-headed monster. You know what I mean? They may look a little different from a different angle, but they're just trying to do the same thing.
I would say something we need to consider. We can't run away from this. Like, Mars is not viable, but in the past, a lot of times, it's like, let's go check out another place and like start a better thing, that's just not even an option anymore.
It's not an option right now.
Yeah.
No.
Unless like somehow we wipe out a lot of mankind, which I really don't even think should be an option, and like just great reset, like no.
Maybe we go into that some more next week. I think that that's actually something we should explore, is what it means to be human, pro-humanity, maybe some of the transhumanism.
You don't want that chip put in your brain?
Not a big fan of that. I have caveats about that, though.
Yeah, okay. Don't get into it now. That would be a good topic.
I think we can get into that. I think it'd be a wonderful topic to get into.
Yeah.
Because what Canada's doing now, why I kind of put one of the big reasons I'll tease it a little bit for next week, is somebody said the other day, and I don't know if it's true or not, but somebody said the other day that the number one leading cause of death in Canada right now was euthanasia.
Medically assisted suicide.
Yeah, medically assisted suicide. And that really disturbed me, man. I mean, that broke my heart. I really hurt.
Man, those youths in Asia, like, always like.
That's terrible, man. That's a dark joke, on that right there.
I don't know.
And that's a
they're always
dark
getting blamed for
joke.
everything,
Yeah. But and I think we should go. I think we should definitely explore that topic. I think that's something that's worth talking about now. I mean, I gotta say, it's been interesting. It's not been boring. Life has definitely not been boring. And maybe in 20 years, whatever we have left, whatever comes out of this, maybe the economy collapses and we're building things back up again and stuff, and we're talking to the people that are starting to reach adulthood, or the kids and stuff, and we're telling them about the freedoms that used to be and the way the country used to be and things like that, and explaining to them how freer things were, and trying to pass that on, trying to pass that torch on to the next generation, maybe by having these discussions now, we're kind of putting those warnings out there for people. And then when things inevitably do go wrong, as they are right now going wrong, people will look back and say, hey, these guys were right. Not that I care about being right about everything. It's not just me. It's the people that are like me with similar voices about these sort of things, where people matter, people do matter, and we cannot reduce the world's population. We can't just say, we're going to reduce the world's population. Now, if we were going to say like, okay, we're going to reduce the world's population because we're going to go inhabit another planet, like, hey, we've got this plan, we're going to, we can go to these other planets now, and we got this whole plan and stuff like that. And we were explorers, so we were moving off planet, but there were still people here having children too and everything like that. I mean, that's a good thing. I don't have a problem with that. I think that's a, kind of cool vision, but one that we may never achieve. But I think the idea of basically saying, okay, well, it costs too much to get, that health procedure done or whatever. How about we just, help you die?
Yeah.
Man, dark times, man. Dark times indeed. If you would have told me that this was going on, I wouldn't be completely surprised. If you would have told me 10 years ago, I wouldn't be completely surprised, because that's the general direction I felt things have been going for over 20 years now, and maybe even longer. I felt like that was the direction things were kind of going to, because I saw more and more people they lacked hope. They lacked vision. They lacked purpose.
Yeah. And
that it hurt me to see them live like that. I met more and more people that were nihilistic and down and negative, and they had nothing good to say about almost anything in their life. They couldn't say anything good about their job. They couldn't say anything good about their friends or their family, just nothing positive would come out of their mouth whatsoever. And that's a very, very difficult place to get somebody out of, to snap them out of that, to raise them out of that. It's a very, very difficult thing, and they've got to want to get out of it too. That's the other thing. You can't force them out of it. And I think that you can get people out of that through free speech, though. I think when you say, hey, these are the better ways of doing things, you'll be happier this way. Things will be better this way. I know it's scary, and I think it's a big difference too in a lot of the looking through the political lens. I think that there's a people that believe in self-reliance, but with that comes more danger, and they're willing to accept more danger, like the pre-TSA days. I used to love to fly, man. I mean, I thought it was an adventure. Airports were fun. They were just, I liked it. It was people from all over, and everybody's, was so nice, and the stewardesses were so nice, and everybody, and the pilots would joke around, and everybody just seemed to be in a good mood. There was a time when things were in fact better. It's not just me saying, thinking back that old, but back in my day, post 9/11, the security state ruined so much. They ruined so much, and they never pulled back from that. They never ever pulled back from that, and here we are, and we just kept adding on more and more stuff, and the Patriot Act led to worse and worse crimes against humanity. And I'm calling them that. I'm calling them crimes against humanity, because they've been infringing on our rights for a long time. They've been infringing on our constitutional rights, our rights to privacy, and they don't care. They don't care. They really don't. And then the people that know it's happening, they cheer it on in a lot of cases. Long enough as it's being done to their enemy.
Yeah.
Long enough as you're doing it to that guy I don't like, you're okay with me. Oh crap! As soon as it turns on me, my constitutional rights.
Yeah.
Where were you when it was happening to somebody else? What were you saying? What were you standing up for? Well, man, we've hit the hour mark. We've hit past the hour mark here.
Yeah.
But guys, I know this has been a little bit, maybe a little bit more, kind of heated tirade discussion or whatever, but this stuff's been really heavy on my heart lately. I've been thinking about it a lot, and I really want people to kind of snap out of it. There is hope. There's all kinds of hope, because at least this stuff is coming out. We're getting to see the receipts. We're getting to see the exposure of this corruption and this Charles. It may not fix it, but I'd rather know than not. I'd rather have it confirmed. I'd rather have my fears confirmed and say, okay, that is in fact what the truth of it is. Because we can adjust, we can adapt. I do believe, I want people to speak up. It is time for Americans to speak up. I don't care if that's protesting. I don't care if that's calling your congressman and senator, your state legislature. We have problems to fix. We have big problems to fix. And we're not going to fix those problems by fighting with each other. We got to fight our ideas out. We got to come up with the best ideas and ways to implement them to benefit us to get through this mess. Because there's some tough times coming. We see the crumbling in the wall, and we know it's coming. And I want people to thrive in life and be happy. When I say thrive, I'm not just talking about financial stuff. I'm talking about with their family and the connections they have and their friends, and loving other people, and the real value of other people, and shedding and discarding this anti-human thought process and moving forward into a brighter future. So our best days are yet ahead. And I do believe that. You got anything to say?
Sure. I'd ask y'all to think for yourself and anything important to you, as always. Maybe try to resonate instead of, just looking for your echo back. And appreciate y'all listening. Like and subscribe. Well, leave a comment would be nice.
There you go. Thank you very much. Tune in next time.
Thank you.